Sci-fi movies offer audiences some of the greatest escapes from reality. From Avatar to Star Wars and Star Trek, there's a fantastical world for everyone. But there are those that gave us the greatest twist endings ever, leaving us reeling from what we just watched. In this video, we're picking 10 of our favorite sci-fi movies that had brilliant twist endings that left us aching for answers. Also, here's your warning for major spoilers, starting with Dark City at number 10.
Hello? Hello?
Dark City is gritty, unsettling, and, dark, literally. But it's the twist at the end that's worth all your money. The protagonist, John, wakes up in a room with a murdered woman, with no memory of how he got there. He's suffering from amnesia, and only has a few memories floating around his head. One of them's about a place called Shell Beach, which is a gorgeous location as opposed to the seedy darkness of Dark City. But here's the problem. He's being chased by strange, creepy bald men, and each bald guy refers to the other by weird names like Mr. Book and Mr. Chair. What's weirder is that these men change what the city looks like every single night, and John seems to be the only guy who can see what's going on. And then comes the twist. Dark City isn't a city at all, it's a spaceship, and the creepy bald guys, they're aliens inside the bodies of dead humans. It's a twist you don't see coming, and it leaves you with burning questions about what the end really means. Next at number 9 is Unbreakable.
It's just an awful feeling. What have you done?
Just a year after The Sixth Sense, M. Night Shyamalan wrote and directed Unbreakable, which spawned 2 sequels making up the Unbreakable trilogy. But like many trilogies that failed to make the cut, the original remains the best. The story follows David Dunn, the survivor of a horrible train crash, who realizes he's walked away without a scratch. Soon, he learns that not only does he not get injured and is insanely strong, but he's also got the ability to read people's minds by touching them, particularly their most evil acts. He also meets Elijah Price, a wheelchair-bound man who suffers from brittle bone disease. He seems like the guy who knows everything and uses comic books to explain David's predicament. But in the final act, the 2 men shake hands, revealing to David that Elijah's been the mastermind behind his suffering all along and made him his nemesis. It's a neat twist on a villain's origin story and remains one of our favorite Shyamalan films. For number 8, we have Zack Snyder's Watchmen. The plot of the movie sounds like a darker, more depressing version of the MCU's Civil War. After public outrage, vigilantes and therefore superheroes are outlawed in the US. The world is also on the brink of nuclear war, but Rorschach, a vigilante detective, cares about one thing: Edward Blake's murder, who is also known as the Comedian. And then there's Dr. Manhattan, who's basically a god and could squish humanity if he wanted to. And that's where Matthew Good's Ozymandias devises a horrible plan: activate Manhattan's energy reactors in hundreds of cities around the world and turn the world against the blue god. But the twist is, his plan works, and the villain wins. Dr. Manhattan realizes the logic of Ozymandias' plan and just teleports to another galaxy. The world is united against a common threat, and there's no longer a threat of a nuclear war. Now for Danny Boyle's Sunshine at number 7. Sunshine follows a group of astronauts who are traveling to the sun in order to detonate a stellar bomb capable of reigniting the sun. Yes, we know that sounds ridiculous, but there are far weirder plots on this list. Anyway, their spaceship's called Icarus II, with Icarus I being lost in space some time ago. The movie goes on as usual, and it's pretty awesome watching the astronauts argue with each other until they hear a distress beacon from Icarus I. The crew decides to go there and check to see if there are any survivors, but unsurprisingly, there's no one aboard, except the captain, who went insane and developed a god complex, becoming a psychotic killer. Sunshine goes from an interesting sci-fi thriller to a slasher movie in just a few minutes. A lot of folks didn't like Danny's twist, but for us, it's one of the better sci-fi movies that keep you on the edge until the end. Up next is number 6, The Prestige. After the superhero blockbuster that was Batman Begins, Nolan, Bale, and Michael Caine got to work on The Prestige, a mind-bending sci-fi that leaves its biggest twist until the end. The story's about Robert Angier, played by Hugh Jackman, and his friend turned bitter enemy Alfred Borden, played by Bale. The 2 magicians go on to have separate successful careers, but the end has 2 twists that leave you reeling. The first is Angier's secret to his version of the transported man trick. He uses a Tesla machine to create a clone of himself and then kills the original version by dropping them in a water tank under the stage. The second twist is Borden's, who turned out to have an identical twin to use in his version of the same trick, and if you look for them, the clues are at the very beginning of the movie. Coming in at number 5 is Soylent Green. This Charlton Heston classic has one of the most iconic and grossest plot twists of all time, period. It follows NYPD detective Robert Thorne, played by Heston, in the year 2022. The world's overpopulated, and climate change has screwed everything up for humans. Only the rich can afford a house, water, and food. But when Thorne investigates a murder, he finds out a terrible truth. The company that makes the the food called Soylent Green for everyone, but it's made from, wait for it, euthanized humans. And if that isn't a pure sci-fi concept that sounds very plausible, we don't know what is. At number 4, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. No, not the 1956 classic. We're talking about the 1978 Donald Sutherland-led remake, which is an example of how to nail a remake properly. Not only is it one of the greatest remakes ever, but it also has one of the best sci-fi endings of all time. The story's pretty simple. Aliens invade a small town and start replicating humans and replacing them. But the most terrifying bit is their hair-raising shriek when they spot a real human. Now at the end, the battle looks almost lost for the good guys. The aliens are winning and the humans are in limited numbers, but our focus remains on Matthew, Elizabeth, and Nancy. They realize that they can blend in with the aliens if they act emotionless. Matthew, being one of the few people remaining in the end, looks like he's done a good job, but when we follow him outside and Nancy comes to greet him, he opens his mouth, points at her, and starts screaming, making it plain that he's now a body snatcher, and poor Nancy's alone in a town full of emotionless aliens. In third place, it's Ex Machina. The movie didn't have a huge budget, and it was the director's first ever feature film, so in a high-pressure sort of way, it could have also been his last, but the man knocked it out of the park by creating the humanoid robot named Ava, played by Alicia Vikander. Domhnall Gleeson played Caleb Smith, an engineer for a search engine company called Blue Book. He wins a contest to visit the home of Blue Book's CEO, but he quickly witnesses that Nathan Bateman, played by Oscar Isaac, has created artificial life in his home, and then he meets Ava and falls in love with her. He decides to help her escape Bateman's home, only to be used and manipulated by Ava and get trapped inside at the very end. It's a really shocking ending to what appeared to be a love story. Next is number 2, 1968's Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes was groundbreaking for its time, for both its stunning prosthetic makeup and brilliant sci-fi story, but the twist ending is something we keep coming back to because of how shocking it was. So we first see an astronaut crash landing on a planet, and eventually find out that it's ruled by intelligent apes. Obviously, they catch him and put him in a cage, but he eventually escapes and heads to the beach. But then comes the twist. The Statue of Liberty lies in the sand, totally destroyed. The astronaut realizes that the alien planet was actually his own the whole time. Humans just lost when the apes came knocking on their doors. Finally, number 1, the biggest twist in Star Wars. There's not much we can say about it now since it's a meme at this point, but it's nonetheless one of the most iconic twist endings of all time. A New Hope introduced fans to Luke Skywalker, who has a strong connection with the Force and destroys the Death Star all by himself, despite being the underdog. But the second movie, The Empire Strikes Back, is arguably better than the original. This is where the heroes lose, especially Luke. After a tough battle with Darth Vader and getting his hand cut off, Vader reveals one simple truth: he is Luke's father. George Lucas didn't even tell the cast about this twist, making the reveal all the more shocking. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for watching. So, what's your favorite sci-fi twist ending of all time? Did we miss out on any? Tell us down below. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos in the future. We'll see you at the next one.